Ever feel like you're stuck in the slow lane of learning? Others are zipping past you in the fast lane. Well, today we're going to talk about switching gears. We're diving into Ultralearning, Scott Young's roadmap to mastering anything faster.
And it's not just about speed, right? It's about unlocking this potential, this incredible potential we all have to learn more effectively. We can push ourselves further than we thought possible.
Exactly. And when I first heard about this book, what really hooked me was Young's own story. So he was inspired by a guy, Benny Lewis, maybe you've heard of him, who learns languages in 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what a legend. But Young was so inspired, he decided to hack the learning game himself.
And that's what's so great about this book. It's grounded in real experience, not just theory. Like, take his MIT challenge, for example, where he learned their entire computer science curriculum.
Wait, hold on.
In a year.
Okay, from home, I get it. We've all been there. But a whole degree program in a year.
Yeah.
That sounds less like learning and more like time travel. How did he even...
All from his bedroom, by the way.
No way.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It highlights a key idea behind Ultralearning. You don't need to be a genius or have special access. It's really about approaching learning strategically with intention. So instead of just diving into textbooks, Young meticulously planned his learning process. He identified the most important concepts and used focused practice to really master the material.
So it's like he treated learning like a project, not just something you casually do.
Yeah.
I can see how that mindset shift alone would be huge.
Absolutely. Ultralearning is all about taking control of your learning journey. You're ditching the passive methods we're often taught and embracing a more proactive, strategic approach. And the foundation of this approach, well, that's where Young's 9 principles come in.
Okay, now those 9 principles, I have to admit, when I first saw that list, I thought, whoa, this is a lot. But then I started digging into them, and each one on its own is like this light bulb moment for how we learn best.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
It is a lot, yeah.
Let's start with the first principle, meta learning.
Okay.
Which sounds a lot more intimidating than it actually is.
Right, yeah.
Think of it like planning a road trip.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just hop in the car and drive, right? You'd need a map. You'd need a destination.
You got to know where you're going.
Exactly. So meta learning is about having that clear roadmap for your learning.
I like it.
You've got to figure out the why, the what, and the how before you even begin.
The why, what, and how.
Young gives a fantastic example of this with Daniel Everett.
Okay.
He's a linguist who has mastered a crazy number of languages.
Wow.
And his secret, he doesn't treat each language as a separate entity.
Interesting.
He breaks down their underlying structures to create a sort of meta-learning map.
So it's all about finding the patterns, the underlying principles that connect things.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's about finding the common threads.
Yeah.
But even with a map, even if you know where you're going, staying focused.
Oh, tell me about it.
Can be tough, especially in our world of constant distractions.
So true.
Which brings us to principle number 2, focus.
Okay, focus. Got it.
And it's more than just silencing your phone. It's about cultivating really deep, focused work.
Deep work, yeah.
Think back to Mary Somerville.
Okay.
She was a self-taught scientist from the 18th century.
Wow. Okay.
Now imagine trying to translate complex scientific works while raising a family in that era. Talk about multitasking.
No kidding. That's impressive.
Right. But Somerville found ways to carve out dedicated time for focused learning.
She made it work.
She did.
So it's not about having fewer distractions. It's about managing them.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got our map. We're laser focused. Now it's time to actually dive in.
Love it. That's where principle number 3 comes in. Directness.
Directness, okay.
Directness is about getting your hands dirty, learning by doing, immersing yourself in the skill you want to master.
So, like real-world experience.
Yes. Young talks about this aspiring architect, Vatsal Jaiswal, who learned more by working in a print shop surrounded by blueprints than he did in architecture school.
Wow, that's wild. It makes you wonder if sometimes we get so caught up in the theory that we forget to actually apply what we're learning.
Absolutely. But even with direct experience, mastery often requires us to break down complex skills and focus on specific components.
Makes sense.
And that brings us to principle number 4, drill.
Drill. Okay.
Imagine Benjamin Franklin, right? This is a guy who meticulously dissected essays to understand persuasive writing.
Interesting.
He was practicing each element with focused intention.
So it's like those drills athletes do, right? They spend hours focusing on specific movements to improve their overall game. It's not always the most exciting part, but it's where those incremental improvements happen.
Exactly. But it's not enough to just cram information into your brain.
Right.
You've got to be able to retrieve it when it matters. And that's where principle number 5 comes in. Retrieval.
Retrieval. Okay.
Think about trying to explain a concept to a friend.
Okay.
You actually understand it better when you force yourself to recall and articulate the information.
Is true, yeah.
Jung uses the example of Srinivasa Ramanujan, a self-taught math prodigy
Okay.
who unlocked really deep understanding by constantly reconstructing theorems from a basic textbook.
So it's not just about memorizing facts, it's about actively engaging with the material.
Yeah.
Testing yourself.
Yes, testing yourself, making those neural connections stronger.
Love it. But even with the best intentions, we all make mistakes.
Of course, we're human.
Right, which is where principle number 6 comes in. Feedback.
Feedback is so important.
It is, yeah.
I love the example Jung uses here. Chris Rock, the comedian.
Okay.
Hilarious, right?
Oh, yeah.
But he constantly tests new material in small clubs.
He does not strike me as a small club kind of guy.
He's not, but it's not about getting applause. It's about those immediate reactions, those little cues that tell him what's working and what's not.
Feedback is like having a personal trainer for your brain.
Yeah.
Right? Pointing out your blind spots and helping you fine-tune your approach.
Love that analogy. But even with solid feedback, there's always the risk of forgetting what we've learned.
Oh, I know it too well. It's
Yeah.
like I learned something new and then poof, gone.
Right. And that's where principle number 7 comes in. Retention.
Retention, got it.
It's about fighting that dreaded forgetting curve.
What is it?
The forgetting curve, yeah,
Yeah.
and making knowledge stick.
I like it.
Jung dives into techniques like spaced repetition, revisiting information at increasing intervals, and over-learning, practicing beyond mastery.
So you're not just learning it, you're mastering it.
Exactly.
Right.
He uses the example of Nigel Richards, a Scrabble champion,
It's a Scrabble champion.
with the mind-boggling memory palace of words.
No way. A memory palace. What is that?
We could do a whole other deep dive on that.
We should.
But it's fascinating stuff.
Okay.
The point is, conscious effort can lead to incredible retention.
It reminds me of that saying, use it or lose it.
Yes,
Our brains are like muscles.
100%.
They need regular workouts to stay sharp.
Absolutely. And as we become more comfortable with the material, we can start developing a deeper, more intuitive understanding.
Okay.
Which brings us to principle number 8, intuition.
Intuition, okay.
Richard Feynman, the renowned physicist, embodies this principle.
Okay.
He believed in tackling hard problems head-on,
Yeah.
not shying away from them.
Lean in?
Yes, and constantly testing his understanding to develop a feel for the subject.
So it's about moving beyond just knowing the rules and formulas.
Yes.
And developing a gut feeling for how things work.
Exactly. But even with a strong intuition, there's always room for growth. There's always room for exploring new possibilities.
Right.
And that's where our final principle comes in. Experimentation.
Experimentation. Okay, I like it.
This is where we see Vincent van Gogh's artistic journey come to life.
The paint.
Yes. He constantly experimented with different styles and techniques,
Interest.
always pushing beyond his comfort zone
Right.
to develop his unique voice.
Wow, we really went deep on those 9 principles.
Yeah, quite a journey. Makes you think about learning in a whole new light, right?
It really does. But I have to ask, where do we even begin? It seems like a lot to take in.
You know, it all starts with a simple question. What's your Everest? Like, what's that one thing, that skill or area you're just dying to conquer?
It's a good question.
Ultralearning works best when it comes from a place of genuine passion, you know?
So find that thing that makes you want to dive in head first. I like that.
Exactly. Once you've got that fire lit, the next step is to embrace deliberate practice. And remember, it's not about just going through the motions, but pushing past your comfort zone.
So those drills we talked about earlier, they're not just for athletes or musicians.
No, at all. Deliberate practice, it applies to anything you want to master. Figure out your weaknesses and then, bam, focus your energy there.
Like having a personal trainer for your brain.
Exactly. And the best part, don't be afraid to experiment. What works for one person might not work for another. So try different things, mix it up, find your own groove.
So it's like having this toolbox full of learning strategies, and we get to pick and choose what works best for us.
Exactly. And remember, even small, consistent steps, when amplified by these strategies, lead to some pretty incredible results.
So no matter what your learning goal is, like picking up a new language, mastering a complex skill, or really diving into a subject you're fascinated by, just remember, you have the power to unlock your ultra-learning potential.
Could have said it better myself. Go out there, embrace those 9 principles, don't be afraid to experiment, and most importantly, never stop learning.